Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training or cultural transformation. AFA believes that all men and women, whether in private or public, should be free to exercise their faith without hindrance from the government.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Monday, June the 24th, 2024. Thanks for listening to AFR and appreciate you joining us on the show this morning. Joining me in studio is Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Christopher Woodward.
Good morning.
Our brother Fred Jackson is out this week, right?
Yes.
He's taking some vacation time.
Taking some PTO, much needed PTO. Fred, for those not aware, he gets up at about 2 a.m. And starts working.
Yep.
You can call two people at 2 a.m. and they're wearing khakis. One is Jake from State Farm. The other is Fred Jackson.
The funny thing is, I'm a night owl, so I peruse the news. Yeah, you guys know this because it's a running joke.
Yes.
Even sometimes behind my back. But
just because it's a running joke doesn't necessarily mean we think it's funny.
But anyway, I peruse the news anywhere from 10 to midnight usually, and so Allison, my wife, and I, we're both night owls. So I send emails about news stories that we might use on the following day's show late at night. Mm-hmm. And Fred gets up. He does get up at, like, seriously, about 4.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to bed at midnight. Fred's getting up at 4. Mm-hmm. And so he always jokes with me about, I get your news stories like, do you ever sleep? And I'm like,
yeah.
He's like getting up at 4 in the morning. I'm like, do you ever sleep?
Yeah. I think he gets up at 3 or 3:30. Fred does.
Forget it getting a text back from Fred after 8.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah,
he's in ZZZ land.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, I hope Fred have a well-deserved break, and he'll be back with us next week. All right. So before we get into the news of the day, you and I were talking prior to the show here. 2 big sporting events taking place tonight.
Yes.
What's first for
Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. The Panthers went up 3-0. The Edmonton Oilers have won 3 straight to force a Game 7. It is down on Florida's home ice, so they should be favored. But
Florida's
I'm
home
rooting
ice
for Edmonton.
You're rooting for Edmonton.
Yes.
Florida's home ice. That just doesn't sound right, does it?
It sounds strange, doesn't it?
But, in sporting events where you have a 7-game series, the chances of a team coming back after being down 3-0 are probably 5 or 10%.
It's never happened in the NHL in its long and storied history for a team to come back from being down 3-0 and win Game 7. Now, It has happened, I think, 3 or 4 times that a team has come back from 3-0 to force a Game 7, but then they usually lose. Well, they've lost every time.
The most legendary comeback that I can remember in professional sports of a team being down 3-0 in a 7-game series would have been the Boston Red Sox
against the evil empire, the New York Yankees.
Them Yankees.
When was that?
I think that was 2004. I think that was when the Red Sox went on to win their first World Series since 1918.
Because they beat the St. Louis Cardinals, my team, in like 4.
Yeah, it was 4.
But they had God's anointing.
It was almost like a team of destiny situation.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
A team of destiny, that's what you want to call it. Don't email me, people. Didn't mean to be sacrilegious there.
Right.
Just kidding around. But they were, they were destined, as they say. And then we've got the College World Series baseball national championship tonight.
Yeah.
Starting at, I think, at 6 o'clock Central Time. the Tennessee Volunteers will face the Texas A&M Aggies in a game to decide the national championship tonight. So that's,
Yeah.
I think that's at 6. I don't know what time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 o'clock.
Not
Central
to
Time.
scare any Vols
is
fans or
hockey.
Aggies fans listening to us, but in the last few years, the team that wins the College World Series has a really bad season the next. So it's a question of, do you really want it to be Rocky at Rocky Top next
I think
year?
sometimes, though, that's because a team goes to wins the national championship in baseball because they're ball players who are seniors,
Yeah, that's
have matured, and then the next year they all
Yeah.
go on.
State,
and
Mississippi
graduate.
State in 2022, the season after they won the College World Series, they lost two really good starting pitchers the same weekend.
It went to the majors, you mean?
They lost them to injury. They didn't
Oh.
leave to go to the pros. I was trying to build on your point and I failed. I'm sorry. I'll see myself out.
Okay.
But yeah, you can have a bad game.
Anyway, tonight's a national championship between Tennessee and then Texas A&M. And you know what? I'm not going to pick a team.
You know?
'Cause, no, we have listeners
Oh, yeah, that's true.
and
In Tennessee and
who are
Texas.
both parts of those fan bases.
Right.
And I'm just hoping for a great game.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping for a
You
great.
tell me off the air who you prefer.
Yeah, they're both, and they're, I'm an SEC guy, and they're both
Yeah.
SEC teams. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens. A lot of drama though when you get to a baseball, well, hockey too, but you get to a final game, and then
Mhm.
you talk about drama.
Oh, yeah.
Usually a lot of drama because everything matters
Right.
the most. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens there. All right, Chris, what's your first news story that we have to talk about?
Well, this is one of those situations that, when bad weather happens, we want to mention it because we care about our fellow Americans, and we being Christians, we want to lift them up in prayer. There is a town called Rock Valley, Iowa, which is in the northwest section of the state, right near the South Dakota state line. And Rock Valley, Iowa has been in the news because in other parts of Iowa as well, flash floods and heavy rain have led to urgent evacuations. For people that haven't seen or heard this in the news the last couple of days, they have gotten like what some people describe as biblical proportions of rainfall amounts in a very short amount of time, to the point that it's causing these huge waters to build up in the streets, sweeping down cars, putting people at risk. Sirens blared at 2 a.m. in Rocky Valley, Iowa, where people in hundreds of homes were told to get out as the Rock River could no longer take rain that had slammed the region. The city also lacked running water because wells have been unusable due to the problems that they're having there.
I was reading about this because we have floods all the time, right? I mean, somewhere in the U.S., some flooding, but the amount of rainfall
Mm-hmm.
in Iowa and some parts
South Dakota.
South Dakota is, you mentioned biblical proportions. I've never heard of such, even in a hurricane. You were mentioning that this morning.
Yeah, it was in South Dakota. I'm trying to find the
Graph?
the graph, but they had 17 and a half inches in 72 hours in 3 days. That's that's incredible.
It's hard to believe.
It is.
And you see the results is you can see the picture, just devastating flooding across that region. But think about this. Okay, if you have a hurricane hit, then they're going to say usually, okay, this can expect 10 inches of
10
rain,
inches, yeah.
and you're going then major flooding. Well, you had 17. Was that
17 inches
in 3
was-
days?
On the chart that I saw
Yeah.
was in South Dakota, 17 and a half inches was the highest. In places in Iowa, it was 11 or 12 inches. That's still a lot of rain.
That's a torrential downpour the whole time.
And it's been hot too, and dry in some of these places, which means the soil gets kind of baked, and it's difficult for the soil in that state to absorb a lot of the rain, and so it just sits there. It's a very bad situation, and places on the coast that experience hurricanes maybe sometimes are a little more prepared for that kind of thing, but I'm not sure anyone can be prepared for 17 and a half inches.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
in
Governor-
that short period, what 3 days? You
3
said?
days,
3 days.
2 hours.
Governor Kim Reynolds declared a disaster for 21 counties in northern Iowa, including Sioux County, which includes Rock Valley, Drone video has been posted by the local sheriffs there. If you remember any kind of aerial footage from things like Hurricane Katrina, where New Orleans was just basically a lake, it's very similar to that, to give you an idea of what we're discussing here.
All right, next story.
Well, this is the time of year when we start to see and hear these kinds of stories. We spent a little bit of time on this show talking about shark attacks, specifically in the Gulf of Mexico or maybe on Florida's Atlantic coast side. 3 young fathers drowned during weekend trip to Florida coast after getting trapped in a rip current. America's deadliest rip currents claimed their latest victims on Friday. Young friends were swept to their deaths within minutes of getting taken by this rip current. This is all the more reason why when they tell you not to get in the water because it's too strong, you should really listen to those kinds of things and not think you know better.
These were 3 men in their 20s and 30s. This happened yesterday or the day before? Friday. And they were from Birmingham, Alabama, and they went down to the Gulf Coast near Panama City Beach, Florida, and went into the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what exactly happened, but the rip current pulled all 3 of them out, and all 3 of them drowned.
Yeah.
And you're just wondering to yourself, what? I know a rip current can pull people out. It happens a lot. But 3 guys,
Yeah.
that were.
Well, I guess it was in
they
the
were
same
friend-
rip
they were-
current. Yeah.
They were friends. Yeah, the same rip current. How I wonder how far you have to be out for the rip current to take place. Knee deep, waist deep.
Well, I remember growing up in New England, people warning about rip tides. We called them rip tides, rip currents, same thing. And I remember being in up to my knees and feeling that water pulling. But once you get to where it's like waist, it can take your legs out from under you and drags you underwater. And then if you are, like you talked about being on a float, sometimes you can get pulled in a relatively short amount of time. You're sitting on the surface before you know it. You look up and you're 100 yards or 150 yards from shore, and that's terrifying.
I mentioned this before. That happened to our family. We were in Cancun, Mexico,
Right.
just 10 years ago or so, and we're on floats. But you're just sitting out there talking, relaxing, in the ocean, enjoying the water, and then within like 5-10 minutes, you realize you're 100 yards from the coastline.
Yeah.
Because you've been pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we had to have now nobody's life was in danger,
Right.
but we did have to have the lifeguards come out to help us. But we had floats, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But some people, they get pulled out. They don't have any kind of flotation device or.
Well, we were always told growing up, because, like I said, riptides were not uncommon
Right.
in New England. We were always told your first thought is to swim against that current to get back to shore. They said that's a losing proposition. You always swim parallel to the shore
Right.
to get out of the riptide, and then you can try to make your way back. Hopefully someone's watching you
Right.
and can get and ask for help. Someone can come with a boat.
Right. Yeah. A boat or a jet ski or something,
Yeah, something
like that.
Yeah.
But I think they've had five along that Panama City area in the last week. 5 people.
Drown.
And
Yeah.
then I read where a couple in West Palm Beach, Florida, got sucked out
Mm-hmm.
to the. Both of them passed away in front of their kids,
Oh my.
in front of their teenage kids.
Yeah.
Both parents got pulled out and drowned. And you're right. Most people start instinctively trying to swim back to shore, and then they exhaust themselves,
Yes.
and that's when they drown.
The couple there that passed away in front of their kids, 51-year-old Brian Warder of Pennsylvania, along with Erica Wishart, 48 years old, drowned in front of their 6 children when they were caught up in a riptide.
I think it's a red flag, right? A
Mhm.
red flag means you don't go in the water, basically.
And that
And
was
I've
the
done
case
that.
here with these 3 young guys.
Yeah,
There was a red flag, and
red flag.
they
I thought about that.
They didn't
either
see
didn't
it
see it or ignored
or ignored
it.
it.
I've been to the beach before with a group of guys. one of those college trips, and yeah, we know what we're doing.
Right.
Just I've thought a lot about that since we were kind of planning on discussing some of these topics here.
Well, very sad for the families. Obviously, these young.
Yeah. Also, you got sharks now.
Mhm.
You know, coming up close to the shoreline. I saw where in Hawaii, like a well-known surfer
Yes.
got attacked.
Tamayo Perry, if I said his name correctly.
Of course, those surfers, especially in Hawaii, I've been there to the North Shore. I don't know where this was exactly. It said Oahu, and I'm thinking maybe it was the North Shore of Hawaii, of Oahu, and they got these major waves constantly, and it's like a big attraction to surfers.
Right.
And but they know they're swimming with sharks, don't
Yeah.
they? I mean,
There's sharks out there. My understanding is that sharks generally don't go after people because they recognize them as not being part of their regular diet, if you can say it. So shark attacks are relatively rare, but they seem to have ticked upwards a little bit here over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Chris.
Well, I wanted to make sure that we brought this up in the first 30 minutes, especially given what we're about to discuss. It was on this day in history, June 24th, 2022, that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, ending the so-called constitutional right to an abortion. That was 2 years ago. I remember it very well. It was a Friday at the time. A lot of Supreme Court rulings, the big ones these days, tend to come out on Friday mornings. It was just before today's issues aired, and so we spent like pretty much the entire weekend working and calling and asking people the same kinds of questions, those being like, did you ever think we would see this day? And many people did. Many people had prayed for decades that we were overturned Roe, but many of those same people, even to this day, will tell us things like, look, Roe is gone. That's great, but we still have work to do. You need to support your pro-life pregnancy centers. You need to be out there sharing what God says about life and the womb and things of that nature. So 2 years later, we're still busy covering this issue. But I as a Christian, I prayed for it. I'm glad that we saw it. And I thought maybe we would, but it was a very emotional day around here on campus when that came down. And the reason I bring that up is because former President Donald Trump, they may even get into this later this week when they have the first debate on CNN. Donald Trump has proudly stood by his decisions to appoint conservative justices that played a role in overturning Roe v. Wade. President Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris issued a statement just before I came on the air here. The Biden-Harris administration says, quote, 2 years ago today, Donald Trump's Supreme Court majority ripped away the fundamental freedom for women to access the health care they need and deserve. The consequences have been devastating in states across the country. Trump's allies have enacted extreme and dangerous abortion bans, many with no exception for rape or incest, that are putting women's lives at risk and threatening doctors with jail time. He went on to say Donald Trump is the sole person responsible for this nightmare, and he goes on to basically say that if he's reelected, he's going to codify Roe and things of that nature.
Yeah, it has been now, first of all, I will freely admit, and maybe this demonstrates that I had no faith, okay? But I did not think I would live to see Roe v. Wade overturned, simply because I thought the country was too split for that to happen. Mm-hmm. Credit to President Trump for putting 3 pro-life justices on the Supreme Court, because that is what led to Roe versus Wade being overturned in the Dobbs decision. I will say this, though, I have been extremely disappointed in the American people in states where they have altered their state constitutions and referendums and made and really enshrined abortion in states that I never thought it would happen in, states that I thought were kind of conservative. I think Montana might have been the first state to do that. So to your point, Chris, this battle is far from over. The majority of Americans seem to be okay with abortion in terms of at least under the conditions of the health of the mother and rape and incest. But a lot of people seem to be okay with abortion, at least in the first 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that changing anytime soon. America has a lot of real serious and moral and spiritual problems, and that support for abortion is a symptom of that.
Yeah, we talked a minute ago about how big Supreme Court decisions in this day and age seem to come down late into June on Friday mornings, things of that sort. One of the things that's always surprised me, and I didn't realize this until I just really started looking into it, Roe v. Wade itself, the ruling, 7-2 decision, by the way, was announced in January of 1973. Like, I can't think of any other landmark, lasted for decades kind of decision that came out that early in a term.
Well, usually they have cases that they hear. The Supreme Court's session starts the first Monday in October, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And then they start hearing cases, and those decisions are usually released in the early part of the following year. And then they hear more cases, and then those are usually released in June before they are no longer seated for the summer.
Very true.
And so I think that's probably why those kinds of things. That's why January is usually pro-life.
It is. That's why.
Because it's the anniversary
March for Life, which we do
Roe
cover.
v. Wade.
Yeah. Speaking of Supreme Court news, this just broke not too long ago. The U.S. Supreme Court today jumped into the fight over so-called transgender rights, agreeing to hear an appeal from the Biden administration seeking to block state bans on the gender manipulation of minors. As we have discussed in this program many times, many states, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, others, red states, have taken steps to restrict the gender manipulation of minors, therapies, surgeries, things like that, on people that are under the age of 18. It's not that you can't ever have it done. It's just that you can't do it if you're 17 and younger. And the reasoning from people like Governor Greg Abbott, our governor here, Tate Reeves, is that, look, states tell you can't drive a car at 12. You shouldn't be able to have surgeries until you're older and you can make a better informed decision, things of that sort. Apparently, the Supreme Court has decided today they are going to take this up. That will be a big case. They will hear at a time to be determined in the session that, as you mentioned, does begin in October.
Okay.
Now, so who's challenging these state laws?
The Biden administration.
And I think there have
And
been
Democratic-led
some split decisions in appellate courts. Some ruling in favor.
It should be
some
9-0.
It should be.
Mm-hmm.
It should be 9-0 in favor of the states because. What do you know? What the do you have any quotation at all from the? Is it the Biden? Let me ask you this: the attorney that usually represents the federal government in the Supreme Court is called the Solicitor General.
Correct.
Yes.
Is that who? Do you know?
That's who will argue this case
on behalf of the Biden
for the federal government.
Okay, this is wicked.
Yes.
On the part of Biden's administration, it's the idea that minors should be able to alter their bodies through surgery or hormone therapy, whatever, and it's just wicked.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, it's wicked whenever it's done because that's not how God made you.
Right.
But it's especially evil, like if you can have degrees of evil there, when you have a president's administration trying to argue that minors should be able to have surgeries to alter their gender.
Right.
The manipulation. I mean, it's the idea that you would argue for that somehow being a good thing is terrible. But anyway, we'll see. So what you're saying, the Supreme Court has taken up that case.
Yes, and it would be October before they hear any arguments on it, if they hear it that early.
Yeah.
We'll cover it more later today.
Yeah, we'll be back with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Many years ago, I was in a department store and noticed several new bikes on display. Since Timmy had asked for a new 10-speed, I decided to look at them closer. I noticed the price tag on one of the bikes. Underneath the price, in very small print, was written, $5 extra if assembled. You know, I started thinking about that, about how much that extra little line applied to life. For life, you see, is like the bike. You have to pay extra to get it assembled. Life never comes assembled, even though we quite often wish it would. How easy it would be, we often think, if life came assembled in a neat package ready for instant use. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't. Each individual has to assemble his own life, to put it together himself. And, like the bike in the store, we have to pay extra for the assembling. Now, if the person who puts the bike together follows the directions which come with the package, that bike will provide years of service and withstand the bumps in the road over which it'll have to be ridden. And you know, life is like that also. Put your life together following the manufacturer's guidelines, and you'll be able to meet the bumps in life's road without being damaged. Of course, if you pay no attention to either the instructions concerning the assembling of the bike or your life, you can expect trouble trying to make either operate correctly. The man of Galilee gave us the clue when it comes to putting our life together. Seek first God's way, he said, and the rest will fall in place. Despite many efforts, a better approach toward assembling life has never been found. We're given life, but not as a finished product. We have to put some effort into it if it's ever to work right. You wouldn't dare take that box of unassembled bike parts, shake it real good, and expect the bike to fall out of the box completely assembled and ready to use. Why, then, should one expect life to fall into place automatically? It is extremely more delicate and has far more pieces to be fitted together than the bike. If your life seems to be hitting more and more bumps which are becoming rougher and rougher, it is probably because you have failed to follow the instructions in attempting to assemble it. You can, with your life as with the bike, reassemble it if it wasn't put together right to begin with. And it's foolish to think that your life will automatically correct itself any more than the bike will. You have to expend an effort and follow instructions if you expect your life or your bike to be ready to meet the rough places in the road. Personally, I want my bike and my life to be able to take the bumps. For that reason, I try to follow the instructions given by my manufacturer or creator as closely as I follow those of my bike's manufacturer. To me, it just makes good sense to do so.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. 2 Corinthians 5:1.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Chris, thanks for listening to AFR. If you want to send us an email, the address is comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net. Ed, folks want to watch the show.
And why wouldn't they?
You tell them how, Ed.
All right, there are several options.
Several
for you.
options available.
If you want to watch the live video stream of this program, you have several options. You can go to Facebook and search for Today's Issues. That makes sense. You can go to YouTube and search for Today's Issues Live.
Yes.
You can go to our own streaming platform, stream.afa.net, stream.afa.net, or you can go to X, formerly known as Twitter, and search for American Family Radio, and then whatever program is live at that time, you can see the live video stream.
Hey, I got a good news story for you. Everybody likes good news, especially
Absolutely, especially on a Monday.
Amen. So I was reading about this. Grenada Lake, Mississippi, which is about 2 hours from us here.
Mhm.
I was there 2 weeks ago in that area. There was a hunt with dogs. I'm trying to find out what kind of it was. Anyway, dogs were hunting. They had GPS collars on. This was like a professional hunt. I don't know if it was what they were. Anyway, okay. So anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter what they're hunting. I don't know if they're hunting coons or what. So this is during the day. Well, there's three fishermen. Two of them I think are from Arkansas. A State Farm agent, Bob Gist, GIST 61, from Arkansas. So he and his friend are out fishing on the lake. And they hear these dogs barking from a distance. And the dogs keep on barking. The dogs keep on barking. This is, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so. Well, these guys see these dogs, a lot of them, on the horizon, or I don't know, I'm making it, they could see them.
Yeah.
They could hear them, and they figure out, well, something's going on here unusual that shouldn't be happening. And so they take their bass boat over there to check it out, and you've got 38 dogs.
38?
I have a picture on our Facebook page. I found
Oh,
it.
you
for-
do?
Mhm.
So 38 dogs are out a mile from the shore, barking. They're treading water. They had evidently chased a deer out into the lake, and they couldn't see their way back. They couldn't know where to go, which way to go. So they had gone out into the water. Well, these guys started, excuse the expression, fishing the dogs out. They realized what's going on here, and they started fishing the dogs out of the lake. And I think they got 34 of them on to their bass boat. You look at this picture. Hey, you put it on the Today's Issues Facebook
Yes, sir.
page?
Wow, that's a great boat to get 34
I know.
dogs. So what, 4 died or something?
Well, I think the other 4 were rescued by somebody else.
Oh, okay.
They went back and got them, but the owners of the dogs kind of figured out that they had been out there like an hour treading water. I don't know, but I mean, thank God they heard them and they went to their rescue.
Yeah.
A total of 38 dogs were rescued from Grenada Lake in Mississippi after fishermen heard them barking while on the.
All right, now I'm going to be honest here. You mind if I be honest? When you started telling this story, I thought this was going to turn into a really cool Bigfoot story.
Well, I got well, actually, the last 4 dogs were saved by Bigfoot.
Well, we're saved by.
I tell you this.
But I really thought they was going to say, and the fishermen saw what they were barking at, and it was,
Oh, yeah.
the Bigfoot story.
Well, these dogs were out. They were chasing.
Probably a deer.
I
that
thought
jumped
it
into
read.
the
I
lake
thought
and
it
get
read.
away.
I thought I read where they chased a deer, but I don't know if that was their purpose or if they were on some kind of a like a. People hunt coons, but that's
Yeah.
usually at night.
Right.
Yeah, I think, and you don't need 38 dogs to
Well,
tree a raccoon.
speaking of 38 dogs, if I was the PR person for this boat manufacturer,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I'd be like, fits 2 humans and dozens of dogs comfortably.
That probably will happen.
That needs to be on a commercial at the local boat
Just
shop.
think how much fish you can put in that
Yeah.
boat.
It says the owner of the dogs, one owner, tried to pay the gentleman from Arkansas, Cressman, but he refused to take the award. So anyway, when you read a story like that, I'm like going, I don't want to read about a bunch of dogs drowning.
Yeah.
That's depressing. But this is a good news story that these dogs were rescued and saved. But again, I don't know why exactly. I don't know what kind of hunt they were on.
Okay, well, now a friend of mine just texted because he's listening to the radio program, and he says people hunt wild hogs with dogs. So maybe they were hunting
I would
wild
think,
hogs.
I would
with
think
dogs.
the wild hog would win that one.
Well,
Unless you got a bunch of dogs.
Yeah.
They probably don't confront. I don't know. Do they confront them and fight? They probably just corner them.
yeah, I
You know?
don't know. I'm not. This is above my pay grade. But
Fox hunting, I was just told by a text.
fox.
Yeah, fox hunting.
Okay.
All right, so there you go.
Well,
But I know it did say a deer was out in the water. They said.
And I remember now reading a book that said that dogs will hunt wild hogs perched on logs nearby with nearby frogs. So that was
That's
I was a
actually-
kid when I read that, but that,
Well, Johnny Cash sang about that.
It was
If
covered by the
you remember.
Carpenters in
Yes,
1976.
yes, it was covered by the Carpenters.
Carpenters.
But it was Johnny Cash's original hit.
Okay.
All right, next story,
Gone.
Chris.
Honest
Thursday. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's a debate on Thursday between the current president and the former president who wants to be president again. This
Drama
one's the
bills.
CNN debate. I've got the stuff here for you.
You give us the lowdown there,
Yes.
Chris.
It begins at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Joe Biden time, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's going to run for 90 minutes, supposedly.
Where are they going to be?
They're going to be
In
at
Atlanta, CNN studio.
CNN
They-
Studios in Atlanta. Yeah, it's going to be moderated, so-called, by CNN's Jake Tapper, or Fake Tapper, as Donald Trump likes to call him now, and Dana Bash. It's going to take place at the network studios in Atlanta. This time around, it's going to be a little bit different. By the way, if the Lord tarries, we do plan to staff Thursday night, so do keep it here for coverage of our
You don't
debate
think the
coverage.
lawyers are going to tarry?
Well, if the Lord doesn't return between now and Thursday, we'll be here to cover it.
When do you ever use the word tarry?
When I say if the Lord tarries.
Does anybody ever?
The only time
if
it's
you go to
used.
pick up your pizza at the store and it's not ready, do you tarry?
I'm going to do it today just to see if somebody
Huh?
picks up
If
on
That
it.
is the only time, and it's only evangelical Christians who
Right,
will use it
right.
when talking
I
about
don't
it.
even know how you spell tarry.
So do you do that every time you talk about your plans? If the Lord tarries this Saturday, I'm going
I
to work out in
do.
the yard.
I
Yeah.
do use that often. My brother from another mother / coworker, Robert Thornton, has probably heard me say it a lot. Hey, if the Lord tarries and we do a 4 o'clock today, let's blah blah blah. We'll kind of do that.
There's another word that's rarely used, and I've mentioned this before. Just if you're on an airplane, that's the only time it's ever used.
I know what you're going to say.
Huh? Stow.
Stow luggage. Stow it.
Nobody, unless you're on an airplane, nobody ever uses the word stow. To
Now,
describe anything.
Archie Bunker used to on.
Did he really?
Yeah.
What would he say?
He would say, "You stow that, Edith." Remember, he was always insulting his wife. He'd say, "Stow that," or
Oh.
"Stow that meathead" when he was talking to his son-in-law.
Does that mean like
Michael
shuddy?
Civic. Yeah, it's just
you
like
you need
shuddy.
To, like zip it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stow that.
Stow that, Edith.
And
Okay.
my dad would use that every once in a while. He was-
Stow?
Yeah.
I just never heard it except on an airplane when you need to stow your stuff, stow your luggage above the.
Well, I all the time tell my wife, if the Lord tarries,
Right.
we will stow our luggage
Hey.
on this trip.
So anyway, if the Lord wills, we'll have this debate on Thursday.
If the Lord wills.
Yeah, between
So
Biden and Trump.
you can invoke the Lord's name in this thing, huh?
The debate
Thursday
hey,
night.
the Lord reigns everywhere. But the debate also breaks with
Especially
campaign
in
tradition.
Iowa.
It does.
I'm sorry. This
The
is
debate
we're
breaks
going
with
off the
campaign
rails here.
tradition occurring months earlier than usual, and with a new set of rules both candidates have agreed to, including no live audience. It's also been widely reported that they may also mute mics.
All right. So situation is this. Biden and Trump are going to be in Atlanta on Thursday night, and this debate is going to be at the studios there.
Network studios in Atlanta.
So,
Good luck on that traffic.
So yeah, because there'll be the presidential motorcade, and then okay. So you said it's at what time Eastern time?
9 p.m. Eastern.
So 8 o'clock.
Mhm.
Central
Wow, I'm
time?
surprised they're waiting that late.
Yeah.
That just seems really late to have a debate. But the setting is going to be this: you're going to have Jake Tapper and what's her name,
Dana Bash.
Dana Bash, and they're going to be the moderators, and there's no audience, right?
Correct.
And you can't bring notes,
Mhm.
right? And so they're going to have bottled water, and I think you have a pad that the CNN will provide for you to write on. This is what I read.
Yeah, so you can't slip any notes.
Right.
in.
So this is going to have to be, off the top of your head
Correct.
type stuff, which I don't know. The bar has been the expectation level, I should say, by the by people who watch this, I think, and the American people is not very high for Biden, right? I mean, the expectation level. Some people are saying if he can stay awake, that's a victory.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of the joke.
And that's we understandably bring that up every time he does a late night speech. State of the Union is no exception here. But from time to time, when he comes out and he doesn't stumble or say things he shouldn't or do something that somebody would consider a gaffe, generally the people who love to defend him on media will talk about how he was great and he's polished, and it shows that he is there mentally and all these other things.
Well, I'll tell you what's likely to happen is I think personally, I don't think this is going to change anybody's mind.
No, I don't.
I really don't. I think you can vote today, and it's going to be the same as it's going to be in November. That's my opinion right now. However, we always have presidential debates. I think as far as winning and losing a debate, it'll probably be who's your guy, right? And you can already tell. Trump supporters right now are going to say he won,
right?
No matter what. Democrats are going to say Biden won, no matter what. The one risk I think Trump has, Biden has the risk of just freezing, or slurring his words, or not. You know what I'm saying? Those are a real risk for him. We've seen how he's going downhill mentally and in his articulation. However, if Trump is constantly interrupting, as he's prone to do, that doesn't look good in a debate situation, because people get back to, well, let the person talk, okay? So I think he should, quote, let Biden hang himself, end of quote, in a metaphoric way. I don't think we should see a public hanging, because I think Trump would lose if he were to hang Biden actually on don't you think that would hurt him in the polls?
Yes.
A lot can happen between now and the election.
Now Trump did say I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue in broad daylight and people would still love me.
Right.
But I think you start hanging a president, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Especially after his bedtime, you're gonna be hurting the polls by that.
Yeah.
Seriously here, I think it'll be a much watched television event. I think people are watching for voyeuristic purposes more than cheer on their guy, don't you?
I've never seen a debate before the conventions, presidential debate.
That's true.
I've never seen it this
yet.
early. Usually the debates are September, or October before the election, after the conventions.
Yeah.
I think it could change the election. I understand what you're saying. If there's a political catastrophe on Thursday night, either Trump or Biden says something so outlandish or so wrong, I think if Biden falls asleep or wanders off the platform, that kind of catastrophic mistake, I don't think he will. I think he'll have taken plenty of vitamins, quote unquote.
Or you think he's going to be shot up with drugs?
I do have some audio to that effect.
All
right, well, let's hear the audio, because I think that's exactly.
Are they given the regimen?
No.
There, Chris?
It's Congressman Ronnie Jackson of Texas talking about Biden's mental state and possibly, allegedly, supposedly being fed drugs. Clip 5.
We need a commander-in-chief. We need a head of state that can function on a day-to-day basis without being medicated. And that's why this drug test is important, because if he gets up there and he looks like he did from the State of the Union, where he's all, like Dr. Murphy said, all jacked up, the American people are going to realize that something's going on. That is not the Joe Biden that we see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying that the president would take anything illegal, but I think he'll have been taking some sort of cocktail to I'm just saying.
Hey, you say that without any.
It's just vanilla ice cream.
Just like he's saying. Who's this? Ronnie Jackson?
Ronnie Jackson.
There's no way that the Joe Biden I see on a day-to-day basis can stay in a debate for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
They don't even do live interviews with this guy for the most part.
Right.
He is not capable in his
tale of
current
Joe Biden's.
yes, in his current state, he is not capable of being mentally sharp enough to do a debate for 90 minutes. They're going to have to give him some I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor. Okay.
All right,
but
Trump said this about this is not Ronnie. This is what Trump said at a rally in Philadelphia on Saturday night. I think it's Saturday night. Quote, right now, Crooked Joe has gone to a log cabin to study. He put in quotes. Mr. Trump said at a rally in Philadelphia, quote, this is Trump talking about Biden. He's sleeping now because they want to get him good and strong. So a little before the debate time, he gets a shot in the, I'll say buttocks. That's not what Trump said.
buttocks.
You know what I'm saying? So Trump said
good. That was pretty good.
That was good.
Forrest Gump
Forrest
imitation.
Gump. Anyway, so Trump is saying that before the debate, that whoever is in control of Biden's faculties will give him a shot in the rump. How about that?
No, I like the other way better, but
buttocks. Buttocks. Anyway, so Biden's and he says Trump says that Biden will be jacked up.
Yeah.
This sounds like a
was-
MMA fight.
He was very energetic in the State of the Union this year. He was very energetic, and he did go about 90 minutes in that one. It started late.
Let me ask you this. First of all, I never thought I'd see the day where one presidential candidate is accusing the other one of getting a shot in the rear end so he can be all jacked up for a debate. I don't know. This is kind of surreal.
Yes.
I don't remember that from 96 between
But-
Clinton and
Trump says, quote, I'll say he'll come out all jacked up, right? and then I'm sure he'll be prepared. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But now, let me ask you this: what do you're saying that Biden can't perform without drugs?
I don't. Listen, not the way I see him on a daily basis. You know, maybe a 10-minute interview, he might be able to pull that off. But I don't. Now, listen, I don't generally like to make those kinds of comments without knowing. I'm getting awfully close to like gossipy kind of stuff, but I just don't think he's capable of a 90-minute debate. I personally think he was a little juiced up in 2020.
Let me ask you this.
But
I'm going to play devil's advocate here
Okay.
for a minute. Here. What's wrong with being juiced up? It's illegal.
Well, because
I
as
need a
Ronnie-
little caffeine in the morning.
Yeah,
Get me
because
started sometimes.
Because
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, but that's because you can do your job without the caffeine. You may not be able to do it as joyfully or as energetically, but what Congressman Jackson was saying is that the president needs to be at a top form on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The debate is Biden's attempt to ask the American people for 4 more years, but you want a president that's what you see is what you get, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
The
Let me
voters
ask you
won't
this.
get.
Can it continue with my devil's advocacy?
Okay.
Is it fair to make accusations about somebody using drugs when you don't know?
No, it's not fair. What I'm saying is the Joe Biden I see on a daily basis when I see him give speeches or when I hear him talking with reporters at some event or whatever does not seem to be a man in tip-top mental or physical health. And what I'm saying is if that's the Joe Biden I see on Thursday night, fine. Then that's the real Joe Biden. But if I see him, if he's up there and, doing the Texas two-step and, sharp, I don't believe that's the everyday Joe Biden.
Well-
and what would provoke that difference? It would have to be some sort of, even if it's vitamins, even if it's B12 shots. I don't know, but
Well, I do know that people in his condition can have good days and bad days.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a roll of the dice
right.
on what that day was going to look like. I am a little surprised that Biden's team agreed to something at 9 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Also, yes.
I
I'm
mean, that
surprised.
seems to me putting him more in, because Trump doesn't sleep.
right.
I mean, huh?
And we've said he's unusual in terms of his physical
He
nature.
doesn't sleep,
Trump.
so it's not going to bother him. You could have it two in the morning.
Right.
I will
Yeah.
say, we live in an age where a lot of people stream now instead of watch something on television. This will be a CNN event. The streaming platform Max, formerly known as HBO, will also have it. Viewers without a cable login can watch on CNN's website.
I think most people are going to be tuning in not for the content, but the voyeuristic nature of it.
Are they going to fight?
In other words, it's huh?
Are they going to
Yeah,
fight?
they want to see what Trump's going to say.
Yeah.
They want to see what how Biden's going to react. They don't really care about policy on this. I don't think. I could be wrong.
Well, but that's probably true for a lot of presidential debates, don't you think? People saying, "I just want to see what these guys are going to say."
Yeah.
But this early, with these two guys who really don't like each other, just deeply dislike each other, this is going to be much must-see TV. I'll be watching it. I may order.
Are you going to be? My question to you
I may
is:
order
are you
wings. I'm going to order wings and
Okay.
ranch sauce to watch this like I would the Super Bowl.
But-
you do hot or mild, or what do you do?
So I'm going hot.
But I want when you're watching the debate Thursday night, will you be jacked up?
No. In fact, I may be.
Can I accuse you of being jacked up?
How many Diet
Can't.
Cokes will you consume during the?
Oh no, nothing before bed, nothing like that. No, you're right. That's why I said I hesitate to do this.
To watch the debate?
No.
Oh.
To say that I think Joe Biden will have taken
A
something.
cocktail is what you called it.
Yes, I called it a
You
cocktail.
just went off for the
Yeah,
full-on cocktail, which is a mixture of different things.
it's a
right?
mixture of different things.
Right. So they're just gonna shoot him up,
But no,
shoot
you're
him up,
right.
put him out there.
That's
huh?
a fair criticism that I probably should not say that, but
It's
we'll
just-
wait and see.
It's just fruit cocktail and syrup, like it says on the.
But it
can.
sounds like to me you're saying if Biden has a good night, he will have to be jacked up. That's what you're saying. That's what I understand.
Now
because it helps him think and speak better.
yes, in a manner that's not the same as he does on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So no, listen. If he
And you say so without any evidence.
no, that's exactly
Right.
exactly
but that's
right.
a good Christian
but
way.
yeah,
to-
just be careful. That sword cuts both ways.
Right.
There,
Right.
Tim. We can pull
that
that
so?
blade out anytime.
Okay.
Because
What did I say wrong?
No, I'm just saying. This does involve a little bit of speculation on my part, and I will tell you this: next week, because following the debate, we have Trivia Friday, and we don't
Yeah,
talk politics.
Right.
Next Monday
Mhm.
Right.
on our show,
Right.
this here show,
A week from today.
a week from today, if Joe Biden does exceptionally well, and I'm surprised by that, and I look at him and I say, well, you know what? I don't think he's doing this with the aid of any artificial substances. I will say so on the air.
He's falling asleep all on his own.
If the Lord tarries, I look forward to hearing
Yes.
that. Yes.
Right.
Uh,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you have a good day of stowing.
and tarrying.
Where,
Yeah.
and
You know what?
tearing.
Tarry,
Wherever you may be.
tarry for a while somewhere and just take it easy for a few minutes.
Don't forget your shot.
Take that cocktail, folks.
I think we've used up our rear end jokes. Okay. We'll be back.
Goodbye,
We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Derriere.
We'll be back in 5 minutes.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
The Stand is the official online and print publications of the American Family Association, but more than that, it's a hub that connects you with in-depth information about things that can impact you and your family. And it provides biblical encouragement to strengthen your faith and your families. Sign up for a 6-month free trial to the print version and listen to the Stand Radio podcast at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Federal prosecutors and lawyers for former U.S. President Donald Trump are back in a courtroom today in Florida. Evan Brown reports.
Pretrial motions continue to be argued before a federal judge in the Mar-a-Lago documents case involving former President Donald Trump. Federal prosecutors want the judge to impose a gag order on the former president, saying he's been disparaging FBI agents ever since it was learned agents raiding the president's Palm Beach home were authorized to use deadly force, which the FBI says is standard language for all search warrants. The former president is hoping the judge will disqualify Special Prosecutor Jack Smith over his appointment by the U.S. Attorney General and not Congress. The trial itself is indefinitely postponed. In Broward County, Florida, Evan Brown, Fox News.
President Biden and former President Trump are facing off with the first presidential debate of the 2024 election cycle on Thursday. Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett says he expects the economy to be the top issue discussed on the debate stage and that he believes Trump has a better understanding of this issue than Biden.
That's where it's at, and President Trump understands that, and Joe Biden does not understand that.
The debate takes place at CNN headquarters in Atlanta with a full simulcast on Fox News Channel. Northwestern Iowa has been hit with unprecedented flooding. Max Gordon has more on the situation in Rock Valley, Iowa.
The good news is that the floodwaters are starting to go down after this levee broke. Governor Kim Reynolds declaring states of emergency in 21 different counties here in Iowa. Again, many evacuations, many people forced from their homes. There's just been an immense amount of rainfall here in the upper Midwest. Some rain gauges and radar estimates showed parts of Minnesota, Iowa, and South Dakota picking up between 8 to get this 18 inches of rain in some spots over the weekend. The ground here has already been just so saturated and there's been nowhere for all this water to go. Rivers have become swollen, several of them reaching all-time high crests. River basins in Iowa and southeastern South Dakota are seeing the worst of it.
A national defense analyst says Congress must act to prevent women from being subject to selective service. Chad Groening has more.
The House has passed an updated version of the National Defense Authorization Bill, which allows the U.S. government to automatically register men between the ages of 18 and 25 into the Selective Service system. The House version of the bill does not include drafting women. But the Democrat-controlled Senate wants to extend draft eligibility to women and has put that amendment in its version of the NDAA. The two bills will then need to be worked out by the Senate and the House Conference Committee for a final version of the bill. Bob McGinnis is a senior fellow for National Security at the Family Research Council and author of the 2013 book Deadly Consequences, Why Cowards Are Pushing Women into Combat, which dealt with this problematic issue.
We could come to the point where we can't fill the volunteer ranks with sufficient number of people to defend our national interest at home and abroad. Now, that is something I think we're close to right now.
So McGinnis believes Congress must act.
I do believe that if Congress doesn't act to put in a restriction on who can serve in certain positions, then the Supreme Court, when asked, is going to be compelled to make that decision. And that is that, yes, women would have to be conscripted like young men at age 18, or at least subject to it. Otherwise, I don't see the alternative.
I'm Chad Groening.
Prospective homebuyers are facing the most expensive housing market in at least 3 decades, but it's not stopping some from getting out there and buying a home as quickly as possible. Jeff Flock has more from Cranberry, New Jersey.
This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Went on the market over the weekend. Boom, it's off the market. $575,000 is the asking price. A lot of houses these days go for over asking. Why? Well, people with money are buying them. Median home sale right now, existing home, $419,000. It's never been higher in history. That's up about 6% over last year as well. There's not a lot of inventory out there. Now, if you look at the inventory numbers, actually they've grown a little bit, but the agents tell us those are homes that are not desirable in a good neighborhood. They may not be in great shape. And people with money are coming in and, over asking on this. It's making folks at the lower end very difficult to get in.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty P.
The 2024 Ten Commandments Project Speech Challenge is a great way to teach children and youth between 7 and 17 to lead a life that honors God. Just have them write a 3 to 5 minute speech on the topic, why are the 10 Commandments important? Then use your cell phone or other means to record them reading the speech and submit it by June 30th. Find out all the details and upload your recording at afr.net/10 commandments. That's afr.net/10 commandments.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues is the name of this program. Thanks for listening. Tim, Ed, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, Brother Tim and Ed.
Yes.
And Brent. And
Brent.
all of y'all out there in Radio Land.
All y'all.
All y'all in Radio Land. All right. What'd you do this weekend, Steve? Anything?
My wife and I drove up to Nashville to see my dad. We didn't get to see him on Father's Day, so we brought him a gift and spent some time with my father.
So he just lives in Nashville, or
He moved to Nashville. They left California. My sister and brother-in-law left California, and he has an apartment built onto their house. I had one in California, and they have one now. So
there was a story I was reading last night about how Nashvillians, and I would include that in the surrounding area. Gallatin this story was focused on how all these people from California are moving in to the Nashville area.
Right.
And people there want to be natives want to be welcoming.
Yeah.
But they don't want a bunch of liberal politics.
Right.
Right.
And it's also driving up the housing market like crazy.
And probably making the traffic can get pretty thick in Nashville.
Do you see this?
My dad lives, my family up there lives in Brentwood, Tennessee, which is just south of Nashville. It's also by Franklin and everything. And it's one of those, it's interesting. You drive down the road to get to his house, and you see these massive mansions built like within 3 feet of each other. They're just like row after, mansions.
Yeah.
They're going for millions. Just the most gorgeous, huge houses, but no property. Just like,
Are you thinking about buying one?
I'm not. It's a long commute, 4 hours each way. So
yeah, you probably need to get a big pay raise too.
Well, if you want to give me a big pay raise, I need quite the pay raise in order to. I didn't even you know what? If I got that much of a pay raise,
right.
There are some missions I would like to support rather than a big huge house like that. Just saying.
You see, Steve went all spiritual on us.
He did.
That's good.
There's no throwing a trump card on that play.
No,
if you're playing hearts or whatever.
Well,
also, he's more likely to give me a raise if he thinks that I'm going to give it to missions. Just
you
throwing that out there.
You think so, Steve?
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
You go ahead and think that.
All right, so we were talking about the Trump-Biden debate coming up Thursday night in Atlanta at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, so 8 p.m.
Must-see TV.
Well, we were talking before the break about that. Trump doesn't sleep, and Biden has to go to bed at 8. I mean, they call a quote lid on the White House at noon almost every day, meaning no more events, no more speaking for the president. But on policy, the other day, President Trump said something, and I'm not sure what to think about it exactly. It was a very interesting comment. I say interesting, thought-provoking comments he made reacting to a reporter who was interviewing him. I've forgotten the name of the gentleman.
This was a podcast. It was the
podcast.
All In podcast. It's a business roundtable, basically.
Okay, business roundtable. Anyway, here's the Q&A, and then I want to come back and talk about what President Trump is suggesting. Go ahead.
We need high-skilled workers in this country.
Yes.
We need to recruit the best and brightest from the world. Every time we get somebody super intelligent from India or Europe, any country, that's
three of us
one
are
less,
immigrants, sir.
Yeah, and 3 of the 4 here are immigrants, the ones without the ties. And we can get these great people into our country, and that's a loss for our adversaries and our competitors, and it's a gain for us. But I've never heard you talk about this. Can you please promise us you will give us more ability to import the best and brightest around the world to America?
I do promise, but I happen to agree. That's why I promise. Otherwise, I wouldn't promise. Let me just tell you that it's so sad when we lose people from Harvard, MIT, from the greatest schools and lesser schools that are phenomenal schools also. And what I wanted to do, and I would have done this, but then we had to solve the COVID problem because that came in and, sort of dominated for a little while, as you perhaps know. But what I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college, you should be able to stay in this country. And you know more stories than I do, but I know of stories where people graduated from a top college or from a college and they desperately wanted to stay here. They had a plan for a company, a concept, and they can't. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here. And a bigger example is you need a pool of people to work for your companies. You have great companies, and they have to be smart people. Not everybody can be less than smart. You need brilliant people. And we force the brilliant people, the people that graduate from college, the people that are number one in their class from the best colleges, you have to be able to recruit these people and keep the people. It was such a big deal. Somebody graduates at the top of the class. They can't even make a deal with the company because they don't think they're going to be able to stay in the country. That is going to end on day one.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we
That's
all...
okay, stop that. So that's President Trump saying on day one, of his administration, he's going to, I don't know if he can do this unilaterally, and I don't know exactly what to think about it. That is issuing green cards to anybody who can graduate from a junior college or above.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of spitballing there in terms of junior colleges.
He said 2-year schools.
Yeah, in my opinion, now I don't know a lot of the in the weeds things about this. In my opinion, this is what immigration policy should focus on. Okay, and that is people who can help our country. Okay, and if these are smart people, I see no problem with letting them stay legally. And that's what a green card would do, would extend them for a certain amount of time and maybe.
What are smart people, though? How do you distinguish?
The STEM fields, when you're talking about science and technology and engineering and mathematics, these are the fields in which the future will be built. And so there's lots of talk about Americans being taught the STEM subjects and putting out more engineers, what have you. To me, when I say smart people, I say people who are in these fields that will drive our technology, engineering, all those kinds of things in the next 25, 50 years. Those are people, if they seem to excel and do well in college in those fields, we ought to get them to stick around. So that's what I mean. But the thing is, it should be public policy that directs our immigration procedures and not this throw open the door at the border. Everyone comes who wants to come, because sometimes you get low-skilled workers who come in or no-skilled workers who then go on welfare and are a drain on the public treasury. So to me, that's the way immigration policy should work, and we seem to have it backwards.
This quote tells me a couple things. I think we kind of lose the fact in the liberal rhetoric that Trump is not anti-immigrant. He's anti-illegal immigrants.
Yes.
He's anti-immigration from countries where we cannot vet the safety of the people that are coming across, hence what the popularly was called the Muslim ban, which was nothing of the sort.
Right.
But on the other hand, the tweet that you sent around was from a gentleman who thinks it's a good idea, but has a whole bunch of reasons why it might not work. This is one of the reasons it might not work. There are 800,000 international students that graduate annually from U.S. colleges with more than 1 million dependents. That's 7 times the employment-based green cards. So now you're flooding the market with green cards. One of the things that they say is it's going to take away American jobs from people who are qualified. But that's a lot of green cards for not that many.
Well, where I think the president was wrong, President Trump, was in promising that if you are here from another country and you graduate from college, you automatically get it. I don't think you.
I don't think it means you get a job, but you have the right to work. But
no, what he's talking about here, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I don't know. Trump is saying he's in favor of if you can come here and graduate from a junior college, a 2-year school, you get to stay in America.
Yeah, that's a blanket policy. I don't think that's
what's the
not
difference
practical.
between that and Dreamers?
Well, okay, you want to go down this road?
I'm just asking.
Dreamers are people, this is the way I understand it. Dreamers are people that are children of people who came here illegally.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So that was, now remember President Trump offered to give them amnesty.
Yep.
In return for funding for a border wall.
Right.
But the Democrats didn't go for that. Remember that?
Yes.
But Trump was willing to give Dreamers amnesty for. This is a people. Are you asking for my?
I see the technical difference.
You asking for my opinion?
I see the technical difference. I think, but
that's not just technical. That's
a
pretty big difference.
Okay, yeah, they're not here illegally. But what they say the result of the Dreamer program is these kids who have been here their whole life and they are going to school, they deserve to be able to stay. This says if you're here, I don't know if this might apply to someone who's here illegally and graduates from a college. I don't know, but that you should be able to stay. I see some similarities, and I know there are differences.
Listen, first of all, I think I disagree with President Trump or President Biden. I disagree with any president who tries to do this unilaterally.
That's another thing that
the immigration problem that we have in this country should not be solved by the executive branch. It should be solved by Congress after a bipartisan deliberation where we set out our immigration policy. It should include the enforcement of our borders. Nobody should be, or very few people should be able to sneak into our country. We should know who's in our country. We should set the limits on and the criteria for which under which people come to this country. There may be a certain number of people who come here because of asylum, a certain number we bring in because they are living in poor countries. There should be a certain number that we can absorb who are people in the STEM fields who graduate from college, but that should be settled by Congress and not by a president on day one doing anything. That's my opinion.
Let me just add this to the discussion. According to Fox News, article that came out yesterday, they say former President Trump's campaign walked back the promise that the former president would automatically award green cards to migrants after they graduate from college. Quote, President Trump has made it clear that on day one of his new administration, he's going to shut down the border and launch the largest mass deportation effort of illegal aliens in history.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with the...
They're redirecting. They're
Why would
walking
you do
it back
that?
and redirect. Huh?
Why would you do that?
Because I don't think that the campaign...
Agrees with the president?
I don't know. The campaign doesn't think he can do it. I don't think the campaign thinks that he could pull this off.
In other words, that he has the authority.
Why didn't he walk it back?
When's he walked anything back?
I don't understand that.
I'm just reading. I
know, but I don't understand that. Now, KJP can do it. She just wants to make it clear.
The campaign is clarifying.
Clarifying.
Right.
Anyway, next story, Steve.
All right. There's an interesting. We keep seeing polls out, and just saw a national poll where Donald Trump is actually doing really well, up 10 points in general. But you sent around an article, Tim, about Hispanic voters and that they're backing President Trump. And the reason that they're backing President Trump, and I can corroborate this from discussions I've had with some Hispanic leaders, namely Sammy Rodriguez of the National Coalition of Hispanic Leaders, who say that those that come here legally don't necessarily think it's a good idea for open borders.
Do you have the article?
I do.
Yeah, read the first couple paragraphs.
Hispanic voters in 7 key battleground states for the 2024 election trust Donald Trump to handle immigration more than President Joe Biden, while 38% of Hispanic voters in these swing states trust Biden to handle immigration. 41% say the same voting bloc trust Trump more. And then the third paragraph, 16% of voters in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin remain undecided, according to the poll by X.
So what I found interesting was that among Hispanic voters, more of them trusted Trump than trusted Biden on how to deal with illegal immigration, right?
Right.
And that's not the stereotype, so to speak, if that's the right word, that we get from the liberal, quote, mainstream media, which would suggest that all Hispanics are against Republicans and Trump because of racism charges. Because if you're for law and order at the border, you by necessity don't like brown people, right?
That's the accusation.
That's the accusation.
Yeah.
It's unfair, and what I think, but that's what the left tries to throw at you. And what this does is defies that stereotype and says, no, wait a minute. Guess what? Hispanic Americans are just as concerned about illegal immigration as whites or blacks or Asians or anybody else. And they favor Trump over Biden in terms of how to deal with this. Did you not find that a little bit?
I was surprised. I was surprised. I would not have been surprised if it had been a significant chunk of the Hispanic population, like 25 or 30%. But the fact that a plurality, 41 over 38, trust Trump over Biden is surprising. But, listen, like we're saying, all Hispanics are not the same. I mean, to say
it's not monolithic.
Yes, the Hispanic population in America. Well, you know what? That includes Cubans. It includes Salvadorans, Venezuelans, Chileans.
A lot of people here who are multi-generational.
Yes,
Americans. They're 3 generations removed from their parents immigrating here.
Yes,
they're Americans who happen to be Hispanic.
Yes.
Sammy Rodriguez told me something that I keep going back to.
Is he Irish?
He is not.
Rodriguez. Oh, that's okay. My bad. Okay.
Anyway,
I thought you said Mac Rodriguez.
Sammy.
Oh.
Samuel. Reverend Samuel Rodriguez.
It's a bad joke. It flopped,
yes.
And I take full responsibility. Go ahead.
What he said is that the Hispanic community have been Republican almost from the minute that they got here. They just don't know it yet.
Yes.
Because they are completely conservative when it comes to social issues. They like marriage. They're grounded in church.
Yeah.
They are law and order. So they
hardworking.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial. Oftentimes they want to start businesses and succeed, and that's usually a Republican thing.
And that's probably what Donald Trump is plugging into. I mean, they have voted Democrat for a long time out of habit.
Well, I think the quote Hispanic vote has been it's like 65-35. I'm just drawing numbers here. Favor of Democrats. 60-40 maybe. Democrat probably, and that'll probably stay about the same across the board nationally. 60-40. Again, as you say, it's hard to say here because Hispanics that's a big group of people. the Hispanics are the number one minority in America in terms of numbers, and so they don't vote monolithic, but they do vote more for Democrats than they do for Republicans as a whole. And I want to say it's like 60-40, something like that. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, let's listen to. There's a guy that's running for governor in North Carolina who's now the lieutenant governor. His name is Mark Robinson, and he has got some of the left freaking out a little bit. They're screaming Christian nationalism. Listen, I want you to listen to this guy. This is Mark Robinson speaking to the Faith and Freedom Coalition meeting. I think it was in his state. And what he said is going to sound to those of you who are listening to this program a lot like what a lot of Christians might say, but it's being taken as Christian nationalism by those that maybe aren't so familiar. And so listen to Got 9.
It's the mainstream media here. If you're here, I want you to hear this. Hear me. I don't care what you say about me. I don't care what you do in your newsroom. I don't care about your plans and your schemes to bring this nation down with your Democratic friends. Why? Because Jesus Christ is still on the throne. You may have your news cameras and your satellites and your 24-hour news, but Jesus Christ holds the world in his hands. And he holds me in it as well. And what he has for me, you cannot keep from coming true. It may not be the governor's mansion. It may not be any political seat. But you will not stop Jesus Christ's will in my life. So I do not fear you. Write your stories, tell your lies, tell your half-truths. But Christ is still on the throne. And because he lives in my heart, and I live for him, I know whatever I need to do on this earth for him, it will get done.
You have just heard what the left loves to describe as Christian nationalists because they don't like people bringing their faith into the public square.
I would think that the left, and we're speaking broadly here, but it would include the news media, they can't stand anybody with that kind of serious conviction on anything that's not a leftist, quote unquote, progressive issue. If you're pro-abortion, they will love that kind of passion. But if you are a Christian or a conservative on conservative social issue X, Y, or Z, they despise that kind of passion. And the fact that they are so hostile towards God and Jesus Christ, to me, is the only explanation for trying to turn what most Christians hear in a church every Sunday, turn that into something nefarious, like what they call Christian nationalism,
right?
Which they think that's sinister.
Yeah, that's
the bizarro left.
Pretty mainstream stuff, I would think, right?
Yeah, and listen, that was good preaching.
Yeah.
So good on who was this again?
That was Mark Robinson, who's the lieutenant governor in North Carolina and running for governor.
Yeah. All right, what else we got?
We got about a minute, so I thought I'd peruse some of the breaking news of the day as brought to us by our favorite news site.
The Babylon Bee?
Yes.
Satirical?
Yes, satirical. And this is the headline. The AP is saying that illegal immigrant crime has reduced to zero since they stopped calling them illegal immigrants.
They run those kind of things in terms of lowering crime of any kind. Murders have dropped. Assaults have dropped in New York City by making assault legal.
Right?
Yeah.
We got 20 seconds. Catholics and Protestants cannot wait until the left is defeated so they can get back to fighting with each other.
I saw that. I saw that over the weekend. That's we have been lots of different Christian denominations have been drawing closer together in our alarm at what is happening to our culture and the political scene on social issues. So
sad news over Disney too. They fired Walt Disney because he's too white.
Posthumously fired.
Yes, right.
for being a white male.
Yes.
How about this one? Keep religion out of our schools, says teacher with BLM and pride flags in the classroom.
Like that's not religion.
Yeah.
That's a secular religion, so to speak. All right, we're out of time. It's probably a good thing that we're out of time today. Thank you, Ed.
Yes, sir.
Steve. Thanks to Chris Woodward, Brent Creeley, our producer. Thank you for listening. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.